Hello and welcome everyone. Today I'm going to look back at my pantry wall mural project that I did. I started it about 2 years ago, a little bit less than that. I did it in two parts. So the part two I did last year, not quite a year ago either. So like 2 years ago and then 1 year ago I did part two. Now I'm revisiting the project. I'm actually planning on scrapping the whole thing and redoing it actually. So I filmed, I'm going to show you in a minute, I filmed something a couple weeks ago when I was down there, kind of showing you how it looks now and what I thought of it. I've decided, because I was down there thinking maybe I'd do a part three and maybe color it in because I'm not really happy with the way it is. So instead of doing a part three, what I'm going to do is scrap it and redo it. I do have an idea of what I want to do, but I'm not ready to reveal what that is yet. It's a secret. So, I'm also not going to be able to do that until sometime next year. So I don't have time the rest of the year to do that. So the video will be sometime next year for sure. But I'm going over what I did with this mural and what I've learned, and you'll see when I implement different methods next time. Plus, I am planning on doing, in between this, another mural down in my basement, a different part of my basement for my studio space, and I'm going to talk about that later in the video, like as kind of a bonus to this video. That's going to be done. I'm going to be starting that soon in real life, but I probably won't have the video come out until early next year. So, because I want the studio space to be done for the beginning of next year so I can start filming down there more often. Because right now I'm in my living room and it's not a good spot to film, but it works for now. But anyway, in this video I want to go over again like the beginning of the project, what I did as a beginner, what I learned, what I could have done better, and explain that, and then in part one and part two actually. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you next the clip I'd made a couple weeks ago when I was down there, showing you what it looks like now, even though I am going to eventually change it. Alright, so this is how the mural looks now. It's been not quite, like maybe 9 months or so since I did the part two with the outlining and stuff. I did the lettering with just the white and the shadow 2 years ago almost. So it was part one and then part two. I'm actually considering doing part three where I would color in these foods and maybe change the color of some of the lettering. I was thinking about doing that now that I'm revisiting the project. Well, the thing is and I'll show you pictures and stuff to compare. I can't decide if I liked it better before I added all the food with just the lettering. Like it was kind of plain, but I'm not sure that I like this. And maybe if I color in the food, I will feel better about it. I'm not sure. Another option I have is to just paint the wall in gray again and start over. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I mean, it's fine the way it is too. I could just leave it the way it is, but I'm always looking for more practice. And if I can come up with something I'd rather do in this wall, maybe I will do something completely different. We have to like do something about the floor in here too, but that's a later project. But I just wanted to come on here and say this is how it looks now. And I mean, some of it's covered up anyway by this shelf. I do have some food stuff over there. But when I painted the second part, I took this shelf out. And we'll go over that when I go over that kind of stuff. But it's so narrow in here, even without the shelving, that, you know, it was hard to get in here. That's part of the thing I'm going to talk about in the video. But I wanted to give kind of a view of what it looks like. I know it's kind of hard to see Trust me, it's hard. It's very hard to film in here. It's very hard to do anything in here, whether the shelves are in here or not. But this is what it looks like at this point. This is after part 2. And I'm trying to decide if I want to do a part 3 on it and color it in, or if I want to just start over and do something new, or if I'm just going to leave it. So that's just some thoughts I have. Now, let me switch actually. You can kind of maybe see a little easier how narrow this is. Oh, that's too close. But this is, the space I had to work in. When I was working on the lettering, and I'm going to talk about this more, the rest of it was kind of different, or either I chalked it on ahead of time or I freehanded some of the stuff. Like that was a lot easier to do, but this was not easy. And that was what part 1 was the lettering. And one of the things that could have made it easier was if I could have got like a projector in here, but there's not enough space. Unless I had one that I could hang from the ceiling, but I don't. I only have like a regular projector. I don't have anything specialized or anything like that. Most people don't even have a projector, but I have one. So I would have liked to have used that instead, like ideally. I'm going to talk more about different methods I could have used besides the projector when I get to that part of the video. But my main thing I want to illustrate while I'm down here is like the space. Like there's no room. Like let's see if I can get in here so you can see, like, it's very narrow. So, just want to take a look again. This is what it looks like. This is how narrow it is when I talk about it. So for part 1 of that project, part 1 that I did 2 years ago, I just did the good food, good mood lettering on the wall. And I want to go over that first, that portion, that video, explain what I did and what I could have done to do better, what I learned, that kind of stuff. So, what I did first was, for the design, I did the lettering from scratch, because that's what I do. I'm a lettering artist. I did that on Procreate. And then I took that into Illustrator to make it the size I wanted, which I didn't write it down, but I mentioned in the original video what size exactly that was. It was like 56 inches by 48 or something like that, to get it the size I wanted it on the wall, which, by the way, I didn't do a whole lot of planning for as far as the size, how big I wanted it. That was kind of the problem with the whole project altogether, was that I didn't do enough planning, which is why I'm kind of not really happy with the results. They're okay. I could have left it the way it is, but I do want to do something different. So, but anyway, I blew the lettering up to that size on Adobe Illustrator, and then I printed it out from there in different parts. And then I kind of ended up I printed out, several pages. I don't remember how many it was, like 25, 30 something, to put it all together, and to put it together like a puzzle. And then I have this long sheet of tracing paper that I have, or I have a whole roll of it actually. And I traced, after I laid out the puzzle, I traced it on there so that I hoped to do a chalk transfer onto the wall, but that didn't work, and we'll get there. But that's my process and what I did. Now, what I would do differently is, this time, knowing what I know now, because the chalk transfer didn't work. Spoiler alert, we'll get there. But also, there's a couple different methods I could have done. And as I said in the overview and in the intro, that space down there is very narrow. It's really hard to get in. It's hard to film. It's hard to do anything down there, even with the shelves taken out, which they were for the part 1. Part 2, I took only one of the shelves out. But anyway, another thing about it being that small is I have a projector, but it's not like a short throw projector or anything. I can get into that tight space where I could project onto the wall my design and trace it. So that wasn't an option. And I knew that going in. Something I could have done though, and I did mention this in the video, I could have taken the projector in a different space, taped up my big paper that I have, and just traced it that way instead of printing all the papers out. So I could have done that differently. So that would have simplified that process a little bit. Well, arguably, it's kind of pros and cons. That's something, that process itself is something I'm going to show you in a different video on its own, and also in the context of another mural I'm going to do. So I will show you that. I will also show you in another video just projecting on the wall and painting right from there, because that's another thing you can do, except I couldn't do that in that space because it was so narrow. But for this project, the only thing I could do is do the, other than what I did, was do the projection onto a sheet without tracing it, like printing it out and tracing it. I could have just projected it onto a wall, taped up my paper, and traced it there. And that would have, again, for the most part, simplified the process, as long as, you know, I can get the projector to work and everything like that. So that's what I could have done there. Then, like I said, once I finally got my papers up onto the wall where I wanted them, which was a process in itself, my initial thought was I'll do a chalk transfer. So what you do with that, and I have done this before on other videos, and I'm gonna do a video on its own about that. And I will link all my chalk transfer videos that I have and that I do after this in the description and all the usual places again, if you're interested in knowing more about that. What I normally do and what normally works is I coat the back of the design, the paper that I had, in chalk, and then tape that up on the wall, and then go over the spots where I want the chalk to transfer onto the wall with either like a marker or something hard to push that chalk dust from the chalk onto the wall in the exact spots that I want it, because my design is on that paper. Normally that works. I'm still not sure exactly why that didn't work this time with that wall down there. It probably has to do with the gray color that's on the background, but also could be the paint itself, like the sheen of the paint. Like, it wasn't flat paint, it was either eggshell or something a little bit more shiny, not semi-gloss or gloss or anything like that, but something a little shinier, which may have had some issues. If it was flat paint, it might have worked out better. And you know, in hindsight, I would use flat paint, not what I used, but that was already on the wall before I started this. Like, I had painted that months before that, years before that. I don't remember when it was. So that might have been an issue. Also, the lighting down there is awful. And especially when I'm trying to film, because that always adds another layer of complication to my projects that I do, because I have to film them while I'm doing it, which is like, I have to, like, if I was just doing it, I could probably change the lighting. I could like get in the way of the camera and move if I have to. But when I'm filming, I can't really, there's only so much I can do. But for whatever reason, the chalk wasn't showing up very well on the wall during the transfer process. So what I did in the moment, with my limited knowledge and my wanting to get this done soon, I decided to instead start cutting out the parts of the paper I didn't need and just kind of doing a reverse transfer, like I used a paint pen, just trying to, instead of using the chalk, trying to transfer that onto the wall. I was trying to draw on the wall according to where the paper is, but kind of peeling it back ever so slightly, trying to put that line exactly where it needs to be. So I had like a guideline on the wall so I could paint. So there's a few other things I could have done there instead. One of them is, I did try this too, I think. No, I didn't. Instead of doing chalk, I could have tried like charcoal, or maybe, I think I did try with a pencil. Sometimes you can use graphite from a pencil too. Charcoal probably would have shown up better because it's black. and the wall was gray. That might have worked a little better. Could have tried that. I didn't have any so at the time, so I didn't do that. Another thing I could do, and this I wasn't aware of at all at the time, there's the pouncing method, which I have talked about briefly. I haven't actually demonstrated that yet on the channel. I will do that at some point. But basically you get either a pounce wheel, which is this little tool that you can kind of poke holes in your design. And there's also other like fancier ones, like there's like electric pouncers and stuff like that. I'm probably never gonna have that. I don't know. But I do have a little pounce wheel. You can go over your design with this little wheel and it'll poke little holes in your design. And then you can, what people normally do is get some chalk dust and like put it all over where the holes are so that the chalk dust transfers through the holes onto the wall. What I normally do when I do this is I just use a chalk marker and get all like the holes filled in with the marker. And then I have that little, like the little dotted line that I can follow. So that's something I wasn't aware of at the time. I had limited knowledge, like I said, and something that would have made that easier. And now I have the ability to do that because I bought myself one. And would have been a lot easier to do it that way. But like I said, in the moment, limited knowledge, that's what I did, and it worked. But would I do it again? Not unless I had to. So as for the painting itself, didn't really have an issue there. Went pretty smoothly. I just used white paint on top of the gray background, and then I did a shadow. I added a shadow with mixing the background color and the white in equal parts, so it's like 50%, and just made a shadow, and I liked the way that looked. I at the time was looking for kind of a subtle look to the design as far as like color wise, like it's kind of monochromatic in a way, white and gray, and that's what I wanted at the time. Now I'm going to show you part 2 in a minute, and you saw it in the beginning. I ended up kind of throwing that out the window and outlining everything in black, and I still can't decide exactly what my problem is with the design, why I don't like it now, but I think it has something to do with the outline, like the black. I wasn't sure if I should have done that or not. We'll talk more about that when I get to part 2, which is soon, but at the time for part 1, I wanted this subtle kind of look with the white and the gray. Also, my original plan for what I wanted to do design-wise was put this lettering in the middle and do kind of, I wasn't sure exactly what, but something kind of bordering around the letter. Like I thought maybe wheat coming up from the bottom and like other things like around. And what I eventually did in part 2 was put like a bunch of food stuff around, which is kind of an idea I had. Again, if I would have planned this out and played with it beforehand, I would have maybe figured out that I didn't really like the way it looked, but anyway, I ended up for only part 1 for just doing the lettering, because mainly I didn't have time to do anything else. So that's why when I did part 2 is when I was trying to add to it, when I kind of took in what I originally wanted to do and did more to it, because part 1, like I said, I had trouble with the design transfer onto the wall, and that took up a lot of my available time for that project because I wanted to get it out that week, that video. So that's why I ended up making a part 2 later and not really doing what I wanted to do the first time. And like I said, I should have planned the design first, but I was kind of doing it on the fly. Other than the lettering that I did plan and do ahead of time, I was kind of going to do the rest of it on the fly, and I didn't have time to. So then I did part 2 kind of on the fly. All right, so part 2, like I said, I don't hate the design, but I don't love it either. And I'm not sure I like it either, but I don't hate it. It's just a little bit off and a little bit annoying to me. And that's why I'm going to be redoing the whole thing and doing something completely different. I'll talk more about the design in a minute, but the only thing really in part 2 that I wanted to talk about process-wise was that I was able to, when I drew all the food around, I was able to chalk right on the wall and I could see it, just I couldn't transfer the chalk like I normally do onto the wall. So I was able to sketch things out ahead of time with chalk, but I wasn't able to, if I had sketched them out prior, I wasn't going to be able to chalk them on the wall like the lettering, like it wouldn't have worked. Which is part of the reason why I didn't do that, even though I could have done other things, like I said, the pouncing, or I could have even cut them out and traced them or whatever. I was even more so in part 2 doing this entire part 2 of the project. I didn't do any planning for that at all, other than I just want some food stuff around here. So I started looking up, like, well, what could I draw? Here's a croissant, here's a waffle, here's a chicken leg, stuff like that. And, just kind of sketching them out in chalk beforehand and then painting them. Then, this is getting into the design stuff, which I'm going to do anyway. I decided at some point during that, because at first I did it in the white, just like the lettering, that I would outline everything in black. And again, I'm not quite sure if that's what I don't like about it. And it looks fine, but I don't know, there's just something off about it. And it's especially true with the lettering, because I wanted to outline the lettering because it was kind of hard to read with the white and the shadow. I could have maybe used a different color, like maybe a different shade of gray, but because again, the black is a little too much. I think that's part of it, where it's just a little too much. But also, when I did do the outline of the lettering, I ended up doing kind of a ribbon type lettering where the strokes are based on like how you would write them. So, and like each stroke is outlined. So it ends up looking kind of weird-ish. And I wasn't sure before I did it if that's the way I wanted to do it, and I decided to do it that way. And it's kind of not easy to fix if you don't like it. So I probably should have, at least this portion, tested it first and see if I liked it. And I didn't. I was kind of, again, on a time crunch. I'm like, I'm just going to do this. Probably would have looked better if I would have just outlined the letters as they are, not each stroke. So I can tell you for sure the outline of the lettering is something I absolutely do not like. But I'm not actually sure at this moment how I would fix that. I think outlining the lettering just in black without the strokes would have looked better, and maybe having that with the outlines of the food in black too would have looked better overall, and I wouldn't dislike it so much. I don't hate it. I don't know. But the point is really that I should have planned all this out beforehand. Like, I was doing too much of it on the fly. And that's really why I'm just not quite happy with it. And I want to do something else. And the design I have planned, again, I don't want to say exactly what it is yet, is something that, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to be adding more color to it or not. But it's not something that the outline is gonna mess it up if I end up using the same colors. So I think that's something I'm going to improve and I'm going to like more. But anyway, we'll see. So again, what I've decided to do is I'm going to just repaint the wall in the gray, and I'm going to do something else on top of it. For what was going to be part 3 is now like a new part 1, a new mural. And I don't know when I do film that if I'm going to do it in parts or if it's going to be one altogether. We'll find out about that. But I did want to revisit this project, especially before I paint over it, so I can share my first wall mural that I ever did project and what I learned for anyone who is wanting to do this. So I hope it's helpful. Now for the bonus, I'm going to show you another project I have to do. So this is the area that I'm making into my studio space for now, where I'm going to be filming stuff. And what I want to do as part of that is paint these walls. I want to do a mural on this wall mainly. Something that I can have in the background of my videos when I film down here to make it look a little more professional than it does, because, you know, looks like crap. But this wall, I'm going to have like a shelving and stuff on this wall, so I'm not worried as much about what's on here. It may be kind of, depending on what I do, I haven't decided 100% what I'm doing. I may have like a continuation of something that comes onto here, but it won't be as involved over there. But it's going to be at least painted in the base color that this one is going to be painted in. And I think I'm going to be using up the light blue that I have, that I used up in my studio for part of the walls up there. So I have most of that paint, big old like gallon of paint that I had left. So I'm probably going to use that for my base color there. We'll see how that looks. I might end up having to do more than one coat, and if I have enough or not, but I think I should. I will for sure do this wall, so I'm going to make sure that's done. And then I'm not as worried as this wall. But I want to do another mural is my point. It's probably not, I mean, I might be working on it this year. I'm not sure if the video is going to come out until next year, whether I work on it this year or next year. So, but I want to get this done so I can start filming down here some of the stuff that is more like project-based, tutorial-based, rather than doing like my window murals and stuff like that. Like my Procreate videos I want to get down here because there isn't a good way to like record those right now. It's kind of hard. That's why I've kind of stopped doing them, but I am doing them more. But eventually I want to get them to a better setup. So that's what all this has to do with down here. So I'm going to be doing another mural eventually, wall mural on the channel. So that's that. I wanted to show you that.